looking back on law school, what did you learn specifically in regards to how to think like a lawyer? What did law school teach you? Because does it have something to do with philosophy, how to argue, how to like analyze arguments for its validity? Or I'm just trying to think. I know some people, but I'm curious what you learned.
Yeah, it's a great question too, because everyone asks, like, oh, what do you really learn in law school? I think it's like reading comprehension's one, understanding, understanding how things work just in the context of law, because we're on a case law, like Old English case law basis in terms of like how we do our law, most of our laws, right? And it's really not just that, but it's also how to persuade people to agree with you, your argument, right? And so a lot of people scream like, it's not fair. Well, it doesn't matter if it's not fair. Are you going to convince somebody it's not fair? That's the point there, right? And there's a lot of things that you learn. You learn about like public policy, like why laws are created. Sometimes they're not fair. They don't make sense, but it's good for the public good. Sometimes it's because that's just the way it was. Stare decisis, like that's just the way it is. So we're not going to disrupt it. And ultimately, I think it's just really having an open mind and being able to, whether you're right or wrong or whether you're popular or not, articulate your opinion with some basis in fact and reality, and not just, this is what I believe. It's, why do you think that? And why should someone else think the way you think? Right? Because what we're doing is we're trying to convince judges, random, jurors, opposing counsel, insurance companies, our own clients, constantly, right? Trying to persuade them to behave in the way we want them to behave. And understanding the law is one thing, but understanding people, I think, was the biggest learning curve in law school. It was very much psychological training on how to approach problems and get to resolution.
I guess what specifically about human psychology did you learn?
Yeah, something my mom already taught me that I didn't understand, that you get more flies with honey than vinegar. So sometimes a little softer approach, a more reasonable approach works a lot of the time, not every time. But if you're going to go in the dark and you're going to be heavy, handed, and you're going to be shaking your fist, you better have some leverage with you. You better have something to push over the edge, right? And finding ways to gain leverage and investigate and expose facts or find things out about the other side or the other party that you can use against them all creates a leverage. So that's, again, people were wired for like safe. We're wired for, protection. So if you can find facts or things in your cases that can expose the other side and expose them to something that's embarrassing or not good, or it's going to hurt them, then you have some leverage there. So just a basic human condition.
So you're saying it's kind of like having a soft approach can be useful for a lot of people, plus having concrete reasons behind what you're saying. It's like you can't just like yell the loudest. Whoever's the loudest isn't the winner. It's whoever's the most sound and valid in their arguments, and who can articulate it the best in some sense. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best approach. Of course, nothing is 100%. But my mentor told me, speak softly, carry a big stick. Because the big stick is what matters. And the big stick is your leverage and what really is going to push that person to behave in the way you want them to behave or do what you want them to do. Yelling and screaming, I've seen lawyers do it. I've never seen it work. All I've seen it is the other side now yells and screams back. Now we're in a screaming match. Feelings are hurt. People are pissed. And, the idea here is like, I want to help you, help me. So if it's got to be tough love, it's got to be tough love. If I have to get draconian, I'll get draconian. But at the end of the day, like with a gun, right? The gun does no good if you have no bullets. You can point it, it might get them, but as soon as they find out you have nothing in there, you're done. You gotta have some ammo in your argument.
Fair enough. And
that's every day, right? That's what we do with every day with people. But whatever it is, like, hey, I want this, or else I'm gonna do this. So give this to me,
For sure.
So yeah, it's just a lot more not arguing. People are like, oh, you're a lawyer, just argue all day. Like, I don't actually argue. I hate arguing. There's no point. I'm debating. I'm presenting my facts. I'm presenting my case. If you don't agree with it, that's why we have the system. We will take the next step.
Which would be
Filing a lawsuit, filing a complaint, litigating, contacting, so a lot of times contacting your local congressman or congresswoman to get some action depending on your issue, depending on what's going on. Letters to CEOs are a very popular thing. They're very, very powerful. You write a handwritten letter to a CEO of a company with an actual sound, legitimate problem. Sometimes you can get some resolution.
fair enough. Yeah, it's really interesting. And have you seen this kind of trickle into your personal relationships in regards to like how to convince someone or give someone reasons without, getting unreasonable about it?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, like I avoid arguments, and my approach is like not so much. I learned this. You learn this reading psychology books and reading, watching Instagram videos of psychologists or people about ways to approach things, and it's one of the things like you're deciding for dinner, right? With your wife, your girlfriend, or whoever. It's, hey, do you want pizza? And they're like, probably not. But you could approach them, hey, would you be against? Would you be opposed to pizza? Kind of categorizing is more of a positive instead of a, it helps them the decision making too. They're like, well, I'm not opposed to it, so it's still on the table, sort of thing, as opposed to making them say yes or no. So a little bit of like softness in the way you ask the questions to keep them a little bit more vague, as opposed to having them commit one way or another. And you can kind of narrow things down. And it's kind of like in the law where we do depositions, or, if I'm arguing with if I'm debating with a insurance agent, I said, look, let's get what we agree with, right? We agree we're hungry. We agree last night we had sushi. We're not going to have that. We agree that we want something relatively healthy, but not too healthy. So you'd agree that pizza's a contender, right? Oh yeah, well, pizza sounds good now. So there you go.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. Instead of like, ooh, would you want pizza? Like getting them to agree to something that's maybe they're not interested in, but it's like, would you be opposed to pizza? And then it's like, no, I'm not opposed. Well, great. I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like eliminating the things that you don't want, right? So you're eliminating all the things that are definitely a no to funnel them into the yes, right?
Interesting.
So there's all kinds of, there's different ways to win an argument. There's different ways to convince someone to do things. A lot of it also you have to know the person's personality, kind of get a read on them, see what makes them tick, right?
Sure.
But it's every day. I mean, I use it every day wherever I go, and but the kindness wins at least a conversation.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's great.